Welcome everyone. We're back for Build with Ben, and today what I thought we'd do is we'd actually continue something that I'd started last year, which was we were building a Trello clone with Nuxt 3. And in the midst of trying to manage all the content at one point, I thought I had actually done two different parts with it, and then I had confused myself because I thought I'd done it with Supabase. So for those who followed that series along for a bit and was confused on what was happening, my sincere apologies for it. The Trello clone series that basically this is part 2 of basically continues our journey of just building the Nuxt Trello clone. So there's no backend integration just yet, but I think once we get the Trello clone up and running, there's no reason to stop us from, say, in the future, integrating it with different types of services. So I could totally see myself trying to do it with Firebase, Supabase, etc. But in the meantime, I figure, yeah, let's just dive right in. And for those who didn't watch the first part, we'll cover what we've done so far. And then, yeah, let's just get right into it, shall we? So let me go ahead and switch on over. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Let's switch on over to the live screen. All right, great. So VS Code is up and running. I think I have it blown up a little bit. And you know what's actually really great about this okay, so I got a little hack here. So for the live streamers out there, you know how, so right now my camera is positioned in a way that the lower right is blocked off. And I'm always terrified that I'm going to forget that I'm talking about something that people can't actually see. So I've gone ahead and for my live streams, I'm putting post-it notes of a rough outline of where the screen gets blocked off. That way, if I can't see it, you can't see it. And so this way, it's a mutually beneficial thing for everyone. So, okay, anyhow, just a fun little Twitch stream hack. Okay, so let's level set where we are at, right? So first thing first, let me go ahead and bring over a new window over here. And so what are we building with today? Well, we're building with Nuxt 3. So, just sort of establish where Nuxt 3 is right now. It's still in the beta phase. I know at one point they were talking about a 2021 Q4 stable release, the end of the year. But, that seems to have been pushed out. So for now, we're still in public beta. I assure you the moment I hear anything regarding an actual solid date for Q4 stable, and as new features come out, you'll be sure to hear it on this channel because I'm following all the Nuxt things quite closely as a Nuxt ambassador, and honestly just excited for the work they're doing. So I know it's taking a little while, but for those anxiously waiting, just be patient. The team is doing some excellent work and should be setting the foundation for something really great in the future. Okay, so with that said, let's see. So we're with Nuxt 3, and what are we building? Well, we're building Trello. And so for those who don't know what Trello is, okay, great, now I'm logged in. Okay, so let's go ahead. So we have a test board here. Basically, as we can see with Trello, what it is, it consists of a bunch of workspaces, and it's basically Kanban boards. So we can see here, oh, this is a travel schedule I had at one point. This is very old. I keep opening the travel board. I want to open a clean board. Here we go, test board. Wow, this is noisy, but okay. So anyways, you can create different columns here, right? So here's column 1. And then we can go ahead and go to another list for column 2, as you can see here. Then we can add lists here. Oh, not even add lists. I'm going to add a card. Here's my card. And so it's great because you can basically get this sort of Kanban field of dragging thing between columns. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue our work on this because, well, frankly, we'll take a look at how far I've gotten so far. So the repo that we're working with actually is already live on GitHub. So if I go to, let's see, GitHub repo view, and I'm going to view the web version. You can see here, I'll drop this in the chat. This is the actual repo that we're working with. This will be included in the show notes, so you can go ahead and check out what we've done and follow along if you want. So with that said, okay, we have the Trello board. I'm going to keep this actually as inspiration because we're going to be looking at the design, I think, to start out with to warm us back up. So for a couple of things that I want to fix, actually, that I realize is this is still saying a lot of, let's see, Trello MVP clone with Nuxt 3. So I want to update the README real quick just to make it and I give people an idea of what to do with it. So this is good enough for now. I think that's at least I update the README so it doesn't read funny. So docs update README. Okay, Okay, so let's go ahead and show you what we've built so far. So I'm going to go ahead and run the npm run dev. So we go port 3000, excellent. So what we can see here is we have a very, very minimal page. The first part is on YouTube. So you can watch the first part where we go through and just kind of start scaffolding some things and how we got to where we are today. So Juan Salom here. What is the take command? So what is take? I will do a quick detour on this one. Basically, at a high level, we know that when we're going through, and let's see, so let me go through my project, Nuxt 3 Trello MVP. Okay. So let me bump this up a bit so everyone can see. All right. So normally when you're looking at your Git stuff, what do? You do like Git status. And so there's nothing to commit. This is good. So what if I go ahead and, you know what, I'm going to do Git nevermind, which is an alias I have to basically reset the head branch. And let me go ahead and actually just undo this real quick. Okay. So what I have right now is I have a Git repository that needs to be committed. So normally what you do is you do Git status and you're like, okay, I have a README. Then I go Git add README and then you hit enter and then you've added it. And so that's not bad. That's like a pretty way to like be declarative in what you're doing. And so what we want to do instead though is, or not we, I mean me, I wanted the ability to be a little bit more visual with my Git without going through a full UI, because I want to be able to see the differences between what's happening. And so normally you have to run like, I don't even know the command anymore. It's like git diff something something. I don't know. So instead, what you can do is you have this thing called TIG. And so TIG, let me go ahead and TIG command line. Once again, I'll make sure all this stuff is included in the show notes for everyone. So what does TIG allow you to do? It basically gives a little bit more interactivity to the text line so that when I say TIG status, you'll see that it actually basically filters out my command to look at exactly, or my terminal to look at exactly what I care about. So you can see that the README is what I'm going to be committing. And so if I press things like U, you'll see that it actually updates it to be committed or not. And so it's nice because this way you can actually pick and choose what files to commit without manually typing every single one. And so this is super nice is because, let me just give you an example. If I go ahead and modify some other things. So let's modify the netlify randomly. Let's go ahead and modify the index randomly. Now this will break things. But the beauty of this now is when I run TIG status, you'll see 3 files have been modified. And so with these 3 files modified, what I can do though is I can go in there and when I hit enter, you'll see that I can actually see the visual, like the diff between what happened and what is sort of the old one and the new one. And this is great because to me, this gives me a quick overview of like the changes and just sort of visually confirms it. Because sometimes, I don't know, I'll miss things in the first pass around when I think I'm done saving something. But when I'm looking at this will just give me a quick like, oh wait, no, there's a typo there or something happened. And so this is really great because then I can go, okay, this is exactly what I want. I'll hit U and then it's saying, oh, this will be committed. And so this is one of the things I find really, really useful because this is a free little terminal line thing. But then I can go like, oh, what am I doing for netlify? Oh, wait, that's weird. I don't want that at all. Okay, never mind. So I'm going to ignore that. And then, oh, yeah, that's a weird typo too in index.view. Yeah, no, I don't like that either. So all I'm going to commit is this one thing. So then after that, I just basically quit out of it with QQ. It's not even like Vim or anything. I just quit. And then this is where I will just use normal commit git at this point to just go commit. And once again, it's a docs change. And what I'm doing, I'm updating README with proper project title. Wansalam, does it do patching too? I don't know actually. I imagine it does, but I haven't. As you can, I honestly just use it for the TIG status. That alone has been a huge help for me, and I haven't needed to go too much deeper into it. But you can see there's the whole documentation there. I'm pretty sure it goes fairly deep as far as what it's able to do. So definitely worth checking out and looking into. But the reason why this is nice now is because, as we can see, this stuff is just junk. I don't need it. So then I can very confidently just check out everything, and then we reset back to where we want to be. Thanks for the great question. And once again, I found TIG is just enough UI that I still feel like I'm in the terminal. I think that's what I really like about it. And I probably should spend, honestly, it probably would be fun to do a deep dive on TIG and figure out what exactly it can do. Because if that's just the beginning, what else could it do in addition? All right, so now that we have this, let's jump into where our demo is. So as we can see here, our demo is, well, let's be honest, it's really boring because, let me close the terminal, I don't need that anymore. Okay, so I have these 2 things. Here is what a home page looks like on Trello by default, and this is what mine looks like. So if we create a workspace like Apple, you know what? I'm changing it. No, I've done Apple banana cherries for so long. It's a new year. Let's do a new thing. So again, let me just refresh this because we're not doing any state persistence. So let's say there's One Piece, there's Naruto, there's Bleach, right? There's like the trifecta of shonen at one point. As you can see here, kind of boring. We can see here there's a couple. The card should be, let's just say 3 width wide, and it could just look a little bit nicer. So we're going to spend a little bit of time just cleaning this up just to show how that would work inside of not only Nuxt 3, but just Vue 3 in general, how I might approach it. So first thing first, let's go ahead and just make this just look a little bit better. So at the very top, let's go ahead and let's reconfigure what we're doing with everything. We can, reorient ourselves with what's going on. So we can see in here, we have the div nav. Here is where the home link is coming to, which is nice. And then we have a div with the slot. This slot is what is rendering everything else. So in other words, I think the first thing we can do to just clean this up a little bit is just have basically a header up here that can just look a little bit better. So there we go. We have our header here. And then I'm just going to call this, I'll give this a class of main header. And then we can just play around with this a little bit. And then I will do a scope styles. Actually, you know what? I'll explain that in a second just in case people aren't familiar with what that is. So main header here, let's do a couple of things. Let's do background color. And you know what we're going to do? This is a view project. So let's do the view colors. And, you know, Trello is already blue. So let's go ahead and do something different. View logo color scheme. And then, yeah, let's take the green. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to copy that. And then did that work? Nope, that didn't work. Here we go. Here's the mint. Okay, so here's going to be the background color. And let's give it a padding of 10 pixels. So now we go ahead and save this. Okay, better. So we can see here that's working. But it is kind of looking a little funky. And I think that's because the HTML body have a margin and padding on it. So let's just zero that out. Much better. And then let's clean this up a little bit with that. Let's give the main nav links and let's just make them a color of this. Text declaration none. That looks great. So then now I can just go ahead and class main nav. Okay. And so, okay, looking already a little bit better. Not perfect, but definitely better. Okay, so a couple things. Right now, all we're doing is we're doing simple styles, but by adding a scoped to this, I think this will work. Ooh, scoped is going to break the generic stuff. Oh, that's something good to, I totally forgot. So when you do scoped, it basically does like this data attribute thing to scope to the component. And well, you can't scope this stuff to the component because the HTML body is outside of the component. So in that case, we'll just leave it generic for now, but we will probably use scoped when we have a component in the future. So the only other thing though is I'm going to just do the font family and let's just do something. Let's just do Roboto sans. Let's just do a sans serif. I think that'll do. There we go. Yeah, that'll just do for now. I'll just do actually like that. Okay, cool. And then for the deck, let's see, for the home page, let's see that. Okay, great. So all I'm going to do now is just do one more thing. Let's do our, like, sort of our Trello. Let's do our app name, right? MVP clone with Nuxt 3. Just like that. Okay, that's good. That's, again, that's doesn't look great, but hang on. Class logo. And then the main header will be display flex, justify content space between. And then we'll align items center. That looks much better already. And then the I think class logo that I had. So class logo will be color, this, font weight, bold, margin 0, padding 0, save. Okay, there we go. So we have a high level like header bar right now, which is great. So we styled that. Let me just go ahead and bump that. So let's go ahead and check what we've done. See, we have tick status. We can see we've added some styles. Great. So this will be a feature for add styles to page header. Okay, already looking a little bit cleaner. The only thing we need to do now is we need to take a look at what's going on with this slot, this main page. So what I'm actually going to do though is let's go ahead and take a look at the index page, which is the home page. And we can see there already is a div here that's wrapping it. So I'm actually going to make this modification here. So I'm actually going to change this part to the main content. And then main, so we'll just say here, class main content. And then we can come in here to do main content. And then padding, let's just do this 30 pixels like that. And that should be a little bit cleaner. Yes, I think that'll do. All right, excellent. And then the only thing is I think this title is bumping up because of a margin. I am right. So we'll just say for now, we'll just simple CSS margin top 0. That looks what we want. Okay, excellent. So let's see, recently viewed. We're not using that. I'm actually just going to get rid of that noise. And then, okay, this is already looking much, much cleaner. So now what we need to do is actually create the workspace. So how is that working right now? Nothing too ridiculous. Okay, so what I can do actually just to make this a little bit cleaner is we can definitely make the input here, let's just try this out real quick. Let's do width 100%, and let's do the padding 10px, font size 1 rem. That should make this look a decent amount better. Whoa, 10px is way too much. Okay, and then we can do margin bottom 10px. Yeah, 10px, that's fine. Okay, so now we've come in here. Okay, great, that looks better. And then the button here, we can just see if this works real quick. Padding 5px. I think that'll already. Oh, that buttons are always weird. You notice how like the bottom here is a little bit more space? It just always weirds me out. Let's just do 10px on top, 5px everywhere else. That's too much. 8. That looks a little bit more even. 7. Yeah, 7 looks better. And then the sides can probably use a little bump out. Okay, great. So we have like high level styles here. So again, I would say one piece. Great. All right, this is already looking much better. I'm gonna leave those styles inline for a second because I don't want to abstract them just yet. And then the only thing I need to do real quick with the workspace list to make sure this works is display grid, and then grid template columns. We're gonna repeat this 3 times with 1FR. And we're going to give the column gaps just 10 pixels. So if we save that, now this should work. That is Naruto One Piece. Full Metal Alchemist. This should automatically bleed over. It did. Excellent. So let's just, and then, okay, so we're good. So we have our workspaces. This looks good. This looks much cleaner from like a demo perspective. So let's just go ahead and verify this. Great. Git commit feature, add some styles to homepage. Great. What else are we trying to do here? Now if we click into this, the one piece workspace, we can see here the one piece workspace doesn't look that great, but that's a pretty quick solve. So let me go ahead and just copy that real quick. Where is this happening from? We have the workspace ID. That's great. And then the workspace ID here has its own div, which we're going to do a main. And then we'll just call this a workspace page. I don't want to do anything too complicated here. And then this will give us, let me just do this alphabetically, workspace page. And then we'll just give that a padding of 30 pixels. And then now that should be a little bit better. But then once again, I have that issue with the H1. So I'm just going to zero out the margin on the top. There we go. Now this looks a little bit better. Okay, so now that we have this, we have the ability to create columns just like before, and you'll see that the columns are working as expected, but they could use a little bit of love. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna clean this up a little bit. And let's start by actually, so let's see, if we're looking at this, the create column button is what probably needs the most help. So I'm just gonna inline style this part right here, just see how it looks. All right, that's a little too much. So here's the thing, right? When you're styling stuff in front end, it's very typical that people kind of jump straight to CSS and like from the sense of like creating classes and that kind of thing. And what I've learned is, especially when you're prototyping and you don't have a clear design system you're working with, it's totally like, it's actually really helpful sometimes to just inline the styles because you're still trying to figure out what really works. And you're not necessarily sure what's worth abstracting yet. So it's one of those things where like I do like sort of like playing around with it in the inline styles. And then when it's ready to be more production-like, or you're ready for someone to actually look at it, like call it when you've implemented your ticket of how everything looks, then you spend the time to refactor it. And then the refactored piece is what's submitted as a PR. And I think this is, to me, a very, very nice way of working, because it's just like, it's very interactive, low barrier of like having to figure out what things should be named, how things should work. Because right now we're still trying to figure out what really makes sense. So anyhow, okay, so we have create column here. This is great. Input as well. So we could probably say actually this board column, which I guess I already have a class for, so I'm not gonna do that one yet. So, or I'm not gonna change that up. So we could just give this a padding of 10 pixels. That should, whoop, it reset the styles for everything. Okay, so that looks already better. But then the input could really use some love because that thing looks funky. So font pixel, 5 pixels, font size. Let's just do 0.9 rem in this one. There we go, that looks a little bit better. Margin bottom 5px. Okay, no, this needs like 10. Okay, great, looking better. So the ability to create a card though, so let me just add a quick placeholder here. placeholder for card, new card title. Like that. Okay, great. So now when we come in here, we can be like, this is Luffy. Great. This here is Zoro. And this here is Nani. Okay, great. Okay, that looks fairly good. If we're looking at our test board, this is your column. Oh, add card is at the very bottom. That's fine. That's a CS setting that we could rearrange. But then, okay, we have a slight background and the cards are white. Okay, so that's not too tricky to do because we have these LIs, which are ultimately going to be cards. So in this particular case, this is where at least my instinct for styling is. I do know this is actually going to be a card component. So I'll call this, I'm just going to call this BaseCard. So here we go, BaseCard, and then we'll just say like border 1px solid. Let's just do this, and then let's do a padding 10px. List style none. Okay, of course it deleted all my data, so it would be nice to get some persistence here. Okay, I gotta fix that out. Test. Okay, better. But the only thing is, I think the LUL has a margin. Let's margin out that 0, padding 0. Okay, create card. Once again, let's see what's going on here. So let's margin bottom this part out. Okay, so we have that. That looks okay. The only thing that is this column, board column needs a little bit of a background color to better mimic it. So there you go. There's that light gray. In fact, I want it a little bit lighter though. I want it to be pretty darn subtle. Okay, great. And then every single base card then should have a background color of white. Okay, great. So now I think we have the high level styles for the Trello pieces. So this is good. Okay, I'm happy with this. So let's go ahead and commit this part, feature, add styles for columns. Okay, excellent. Now, the thing about Trello is we want to talk about the ability to then move stuff between different columns. So what's kind of funny though is I created these columns here and they don't have actual titles, and when they really should. Because if you see here, like here you have the columns and the columns have different titles, as to be expected. So what we really need to do now is we need to augment our app to actually first, let's start by adding columns. So first thing first, inside of this workshop ID page, we can go ahead and say, all right, inside of here, we have a create column button, but what we really need to do with create column is we need to have an actual column name for it. So let's keep it simple right now. And let's just call this placeholder new column title. Okay, this works the way I think. This should show up, great. But then once again, let's just display block with 100%. And then that's that save. Okay, great. So once again, we're starting to see some abstraction starting to come out, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself right now. 0.9 rems, margin. So again, I'm seeing the repetition starting to show up, which is great because I'm all about data-driven refactoring. Okay, cool. So we have this here and we have this piece. Okay, so again, this is probably going to end up becoming a reusable style for my input columns. I might abstract that shortly. But if I've learned anything as a front-end engineer is that it's easy to get into abstractions really early. In fact, you know what? Actually, it's not even just front-end. Even when I do back-end stuff too, it's easy to get ahead of yourself. But, and more importantly, when you're in the middle of developing a feature, it's like you see all these things that you can start to do and you're like, oh, I'm going to do that. And then what happens? The feature never gets developed. So first thing first, we're focusing. We're zeroing in on our target of updating the column title. And so each one of these columns really deserves to have its own column title. And as a result, what we could basically scaffold here is that we should have some sort of like, I'll just call it an H3, which is like column title. So if I say this is great. As you can see here, it looks actually already pretty decent as far as like just like a prototype goes. Let me just eliminate the margin top. Ooh, top could use a little bit more. So 5 pixels. Okay, great. This looks, there you go. And so what we want to do is we want to connect the board column to have the columns to actually have a title property. So we can see here we have columns, and then every time you push a column, you get the new item name and the item. And then more importantly, we should push the column name right here. This is what we need to push. But when we create the column though, where's the column name coming from? Well, this is where, oh, it looks like we're using options right now, which is totally fine. We're gonna have a new column name, which is an empty string. And so this empty string is what's going to be tied to the vModel of this index, or sorry, this input. So we vModel the new column name right here and save that. This should then allow us to create a column by pushing this new column name. And then once you do that, we're going to go ahead and this new column name, because I've done this enough times as far as like this general pattern, you got to reset it. Otherwise, it just stays put. So, or well, I'm going to assume most people want to reset it. So again, if we say Luffy and then we create the column, okay, nothing's showing up. There's a reason for this, don't worry. Zoro, and then create the column, nothing shows up. Why is that? Well, it's because right now we've hard-coded everything right here within the H3. So if we switch this out now to now say column dot, did I call it column name? Did I really do that? I did do that. Not a big deal. It's fine. There are worse things than being super explicit. You can see, huzzah, we have our column titles. And then, oh, okay, actually, you know what? We should not be able to create a column if it doesn't have a column title. So all we can do here is we can just say, if this new column name exists, then basically, then you can do this. Otherwise, ooh, what happened there? Okay, there we go, save. There we go, now it should work. So if we click, nothing should happen. But Luffy, go ahead. Oh, and actually, let me just add a quick UX thing on this in that when I do a keyup.enter, I will actually execute the create column as well function. So that way people don't have to click on the button if they don't want to. So we'll send Zoro and Nani. Great. There you go. All right. So that's the feature in and of itself. So let's stop right there. Again, I'm all about micro commits to kind of tell a story. So we have a feature, add ability to define column names in a workspace. So that's what's happening here. Now, what do we need to do next? Well, we need to actually be able to then move the card between the different columns, because here's the thing, right? When we're looking at this, we're trying to think of the fact that like, okay, so let's say let's say we have abilities for the different columns. So we have like, you know, rocket, punch, and this one has like, you know, triple sword, slice, whatever. What if like, I don't know, we want to be able to move things between them? Well, currently at the moment, what we find ourselves in the position of is we have in our view app here, and actually let me blow up the DevTools a little bit. We find ourselves in the tricky position of, in fact, is it not showing because it's not responsive? There we go. Oh, something's weird with the DevTools. Hang on. Reset. There we go. Now everything shows up. Okay, so we have these different columns, and these columns, again, have their own column name. They have their own items. But what we want to be able to do is move them to different columns. And so how would we do that? Well, the simple thing we'd have to start with is let's just create a button that when we click on it, it will move to the appropriate thing. So to make this easier, I think the easiest thing, you know what? Let's do this. What we're going to do here is inside of each card, let me make sure, are we good? Okay, good. We don't have any changes. For every card inside of here, we're going to go ahead and let's keep it simple. Okay, so we have the item name right here. I'm just going to currently wrap this in an H4. So there we go. There's our rocket punch. And so great. And then, so let me just go ahead once again, let's margin out 0. And seriously, here's the thing, right? One of the things that takes some getting used to is that you're like, there's inline styles everywhere. If I were doing this on my own, I would eventually take the time to refactor them. But in the interest of getting to the part where we're talking about like functionality and stuff, I'm not going to spend the time to necessarily refactor this too much at the moment. So here we go. This H4, the margin top should be updating. I wonder why it didn't. So once again, Luffy. Wait, what happened? Luffy. It is not updating. Updating. Uncaught error. Oh, here you go. Here's where the post-it note's helping again. Can I read properties of reading type name? Where are we getting name from? Oh, wait. Nope. Every name. That's interesting. So I've refreshed it. It's saying that, but I haven't rendered anything yet. Cannot read of property undefined name. Oh, when you mount it, it's looking for the workspace ID. Oh, we can't find it anymore because it doesn't exist. because, okay, yeah, the workspace is not persisting. Okay, that is a data persistence problem. Okay, so for now, all we're gonna do then, actually, just to make this easier, is let's hard code a value inside of workspace.value. And where's the workspace list? Oh, it's a global JS. Oh, it's so interesting seeing when you like, this is like basically dealing with legacy code, right? If I were to redo this, I would totally do this with Pinia, but one thing at a time. So we have the ability to then say the ID. So let's make the ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, and then let's give the name one piece. Okay, so we save this now and refresh. Okay, now we always have one piece populating. This is fine. This is good. Okay, so actually, let me just give this. Actually, wait. So this is where example. I forgot what changed here. Okay, this was the status. This was the update. Okay, so global is the only thing that changed. So the feature here is going to be, so add baseline data, so user doesn't have to recreate it. Eventually, I would do like local storage and stuff, but once again, let's do one thing at a time. So, okay, there we go. We have this part. All right, this is where we're starting to style the cards. So once again, let's prevent ourselves from having to recreate it every single time. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and help myself out a little bit in that every single one of these columns will just create like 3 items by default. So let me, Okay, here we go. We're going to create card. Here we go. So let's go ahead and do this. And we're going to just add 3 things. We're going to add 1 like this, and then once again we're going to call this, why is it columns.name, this.board, this.board, wait, I have the wrong items here. Okay, so here we go, we have that column, let's call this Luffy, new item name, we're not going to worry about that, and then we're just going to save, so Luffy shows up, great, and then we'll do Zoro next. All right, Zoro is good. Loud Dove, no worries. I appreciate it. Yes, the recording will definitely be up later on so you can catch up. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, we have Luffy, Zoro, and then you know what? I'm going to just do the last one is Nani, save. Okay, great. We have it all. This data is done. So now when we create the card, we'll see Rocket Punch. And then we hit enter. Great, Rocket Punch shows up. Now, what we need to do here is, it's starting to get a little bit messy, not gonna lie, but we're gonna focus on what's important right now. And the important thing is we need to be able to migrate things, right? So let's see, let's call this migrate to list. And so now that we have the migrate to list, we wanna say what list we want it to migrate to. So we would have, so here's where we have a select menu. And then let's just call this Luffy migrate list. Again, we'll make all this stuff dynamic just shortly, but this is just, and so the options here, if we think about it this way, is the ability to move to specific columns. So what we can do here is we could probably just do a v4 on, what's our data property here? We have column in board columns, right? So every column in board columns, we could then say column.name. I believe this would work. Column.name. And then more importantly, then actually, let me just quickly add a key to this so that it doesn't immediately break. So we'll call this migrate column.name. Yeah, let's just save that. Okay, so, and then the other thing actually, I forgot, it should be value like this. And then nothing's showing up. Why is that? Because I believe it actually, I realized it's column.column name. There we go. Now we have Nani, Zoro, Luffy. This is good. Now here's the only thing though. We need to actually say where we want it to go to, right? So in this particular case, we now know which list we want to move it to. So like we want to move it to Zoro, and then we want to have a button that allows us to do that. So this is going to bother me a little bit. So I'm going to fix this. Padding, just give it like 5 pixels. There we go, a little bit bigger. And then I want the width to be 100% real quick. There we go, migrate to list. And then underneath that, we'll get a button, say migrate. Great. And then I can just bump this down a little bit, just like that. Okay. Now, what we need to do is we need to create the functionality to move it from one to the other, right? So this is just a very low-level migrate to list here. In fact, you know what? I can even take out the P. We don't even need that. We can just say, just like that, migrate. How are we going to do that? Well, what we're going to do is we need to actually, one, we need to splice it from the existing list. And then once we do that, we need to actually move it over to the list that we want to go to. So we basically need a function that will take two different things. It will take the option that we've selected, and it will take the original column that we're in. That's the two things we really need. So the first thing first is we need to go ahead and actually be able to track what is actually happening inside of this specific component. So I think it's at this point that I'm going to go ahead and break this out into a component, because otherwise I think this page is going to get really, really messy. So actually, before we even do that, let's go ahead and see what we've done as far as changes go. So in this workspace, we've added some static data. We've added like a basic UI. So I'm going to just go ahead and call this a feature that we scaffolded basic column data with migration UI dropdown. Okay, that's like a high level what happened. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this piece and then migrate it over. So inside of, okay, this is going to be our first component actually of this app. So we'll have a components folder, and inside of here, we're going to call this a BaseCard.view. And then this is where I'm going to go ahead and now switch over here to the single file component, and let us grab this whole thing actually. All right. So if you take a look at what's happening here, cards are not always list items. So first, right off the bat, I'm going to go ahead and make these just basically sections. I think that's what they are. They're individual sections on the page. And then we're not even going to worry about the looped items. We're not worried about key IDs. We're just worried about the instinctual card itself. So now that I have all this, I need to comment this stuff out because this stuff is dynamic. We don't have any of that right now. And then something is broken for some reason. Oh yes, it's because I commented out the select part, so prettier is broken. Save. Okay, so that's good. And then we can go ahead and inside of here, what we want to do then is say there's a list item for all this stuff. We can delete this, save. So now again, rocket punch. We can see that if I save this now, it should not appear. So actually, you know what? Let me just, I don't want to keep recreating that card. So how do we do this? Here's the card. All right, so card here. And inside of Luffy, we're going to add a new card. Call this rocket punch. Save. Dude. Oh, it did not like that. Why did it not like that? When we create cards, we do new item name, items push ID, column, new item name. I don't understand. Why did it not like that? Oh, wait. Nope, I lost it. Every time column name. Oh, I deleted everything in the base card, right? Yes, that actually does make sense. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. It's because I deleted everything in base card. That's why nothing's appearing. Excellent. Hello, JavaScript baguette. How's it going? Okay, so we're in here. We got this piece. So, okay, base card, right? This is what we need to do. So what we need to do is we want to have inside of here, we have a base card that's going to take in an object we'll call, really don't want to call the, you know what? It's in this. No, I think if I do it this way, this will be okay. I'm going to try something new. I'm not sure this is a good practice yet, but we'll bind it to a data object, and the data object will be the item itself. And so to show you what I mean by that, this means that inside of base cards, let me go ahead and hide that and bump this over so people can see. So inside of, so we're going to switch over to composition API. And so inside of props, we'll have a prop called data, which will be a type object. And the reason I want to do it this way is because in the composition API, there no longer is like a data property like we're used to inside of the options API. So that's why usually I don't like props that are data, because then you're conflicting with the original one. But in composition API, most of the time you're not actually following the data convention anymore. So I don't know. This is not necessarily a good idea, but I just kind of want to see what happens here. So data. Let's just do like this, swap it out, save, Save here, refresh. There we go. Rocket Punch shows up. Great. The only thing though is oh yeah, the base card styles are bleeding. Okay, so actually this is a great time for radio signals question. When does it make sense to use a global CSS file? Basically, my opinion on global CSS files is use it as little as possible is like the rule of thumb. In other words, I would start by putting as much of your styles inside of single file components as humanly possible, because it is very clearly scoped to this file. So for example, this is one of the reasons why having global CSS inside of your single file components, so for example, like this right here, the fact that it's just a style block without any sort of scoped module or whatever means that it's going to bleed everywhere. Like if they use the same name, it's going to get affected. And so then you have to deal with specificity things. And so this is why typically what you're going to do is actually you're going to do scoped. And so then when you do scoped, this will allow it to be just a little bit better. But in this particular case, the base card is being used within the component. I think that's why that's happening. So let me just go ahead and move this over. The base card, I can't type. Save. Okay, so if I refresh now, there you go. This should be better. And so then all I got to do is take that out. And then we can assume that for now, let's just do style, list style, none, save. Okay, great. Now we've reverted. And so to answer your question though, so I didn't remember, my thing was not to say to never to use it, is that once you start to see that certain things really do bleed across the entire app, that it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to like necessarily have like a place where you want it to affect everywhere. So for example, in Nuxt, for example, we have layout components, which allow us to basically affect the entire page. And this is a place, as we can see, where it actually probably makes more sense to actually have your global-ish styles sit here, where you said, okay, for the entire page, impact their HTML, their body, go ahead and do this kind of stuff. And then really for the CSS class stuff, this is where I still would say, if you're using CSS classes at that point, maybe you're probably still better off in with a single file component that scopes that entirely. So you know that when you want to delete those styles or modify, you know exactly what you're changing. And so the global CSS file, though, which for those wondering, is basically means that it's not managed in .view at all. At least that's how I'm interpreting it, radio signal. So let me know if it changes. Is as if that we had a folder here that had like a styles folder, and we had a global.css, and then it did things like, for example, like a very common one we see in global styles is we'll take the body, all of this stuff, and then we'll say something like box sizing, border box, right? This is a very common one that people use. So in this kind of situation, I think the global CSS is really useful. Another time where it's also really useful is when you're using a lot of utility classes. And so in that regard, you wouldn't want to say replicate the CSS across every single one. So in this particular case, one common one that's used is like screen reader, right? So you want to make a screen reader only styled content. So you can see here that basically what it allows you to do is abstract that away in a way that's global, and then that way you don't have to worry too much about it, because again, it's not really a component thing, although it certainly could be if you decided you wanted it to be. So general rule of thumb when it comes to global CSS, try to keep everything in .view components as much as humanly possible, and then when it makes sense and you know you have the data to back up the fact that it's being generically used everywhere, that's the best time to then actually fully abstract it. But a lot of times what we find a lot with abstractions is people abstract too early. And then when you abstract too early, sometimes you lose sight of those connections and threads that make the context important for refactoring decisions. Basically, you lose sight of those things. So yeah, that's my high level answer for that. So hopefully that was helpful. Okay, so let's continue on our journey. So what we're here is we're now inside of BaseCard, and BaseCard successfully got its data object. And so the data object we got includes the name, which is great. And so what we could do actually, let's just actually even just render it. So using our awesome pre-element from, I believe, a View Gilmore, we're going to go ahead and say, let's just pre the data here. So we got an ID, we got the rocket punch. This is fine. But the problem is we want to actually be able to look at other lists, right? So this is going to be a little bit, how are we going to deal with this? Well, I mean, I think the easiest way at this point to make our lives, again, we're not going to worry too much about global source and that kind of point, and that stuff at this point is probably, I'm just going to create a migrate list, and that will actually be our columns. Is that how I named it? Board.columns. Okay. Board.columns. So this is the array. Man, I have changed my development philosophy significantly since this one. I would not have done this again. But okay, so migrate list will be a prop. So here. So by the way, why am I calling it migrate list? It's because I'm trying to avoid plurals to actually be very specific that something is an array. And it's very clear to people when you say it's a list, it's basically an array. So so here we can see the pre-data here, and to make sure this list, migrate list here, as we can see here, did it work? Save, refresh, here we go. Here's a column name, here's that, excellent. All right, so once again, we're going for MVP, so we're not gonna worry about UUIDs and all this stuff. So the next thing we wanna do then is actually be able to migrate them from one to the other. So now that we have this, we can actually go ahead and render this out. So for every column inside of board dot, and not even that, so this is a migrate list, just like that, then this should actually just work. So if we refresh, there we go, Luffy, Zoro, Nani, great, delete, delete, delete. All right, excellent. Now we can actually focus a bit more on where we want to go. So we already know the base column title, right? I believe. Oh no, I don't think we do, because we have the card, but it is not attached to anything. That is a slightly interesting conundrum. So we have to then say what the parent is on this. So, oh man, again, I would refactor this data, but at one point we're gonna have to just accept certain things. So the parent list versus the migrate list are two different things. So M parent list. Oh wait, not even a parent list, actually. We just call it the parent column. That's what it is. And so the parent column is this. So the parent column is just going to be an object that we get. And this is where we can then say the parent column. Basically, this tells us where we're from. So we save this and refresh. Great. We're coming from the column name Luffy. Although, you know what though? We're going to make this even easier. We're just going to pass the name of the column name. There's no point passing all that data down to it, because that's all it cares about. All right, great. We have the column name. Great. Excellent. Save. Now, how do we move it? This is going to be the question. So let's go ahead and save this in that we've refactored the BaseCard component to have its own state. Great. All right. So now that we're in here, now this is the part where it gets the tricky part starts to come in. We're going to have a function here from migrate. We'll say migrate card is what we'll call it. So migrate card is going to be the click. And I think it's this that's breaking the syntax highlighting. Okay, migrate card is what we're clicking. And here's the thing, we want to know what we selected. So what we need here is the ability to then update this V model on something called, like, again, let's be very explicit, migrate list target, okay? And so what I can do now is we can import ref from view, because what we're going to do is we're going to define a migrate list target, which will be a ref that is some sort of empty string. And so to make sure this works, we're going to go ahead and render it out. So here we go, migrate list target, and then save this. And so if this works the way I hope it does, we can see here, click, okay, let me refresh, click, Nani, Zoro, Luffy. Okay, great. So now we basically figured out a way to track where we want to go. Now we can actually have a migrate card function. And the thing is that it doesn't need to receive any arguments because we actually have everything we need. So what we want to do is we say the const target, sure, let's just follow this pattern a little bit. So, well, actually we already have the migrate, fine, let's see, migrate list target dot value. And then we have the original column, which is going to be your props. So what we need to do here is declare props as a const. So props.parent column, I think that's actually that. And so to show that this works, let's just log target column and original column. Okay. So if we take a look at the console here, and we go ahead and so we see Luffy. Oh, right, migrate. So we have migrate here, Nani, Luffy. This is great. This tells us exactly what we need. Okay. So what we need to do here is we need to do a basic comparison, right? So we need to say if target column is equal to original column, then actually nothing's going to happen. So what we need to do is when they're not in the thing, what we're going to do is this is where we're actually going to run the migration. And so in order to do this, we have to think about where we are and where we're going. So the one thing we want to do then is we want to actually basically bubble up an event to the top, because the card should not be responsible for the migration anymore. The data is like localized here. So what we need to do, we need to emit an event. And so how do we do that? Well, we're going to go ahead and define a new view3 property called the define emits. So what are we going to do? Define emits. And what are we going to emit? We're going to emit something called a migrate card, or I'll just say migrate item, actually. I kind of like that better. And then we're not going to worry about checking it right now. So just migrate item null. That's what we're going to do. So then we can do a emits function where we do the migrate item. And then the migrate item is going to have a payload of target column with original column. So now that we save this, we can verify that this works. How do we do this? Well, the component is emitting what event? It's emitting this migrate item event. And so it's saying, okay, hey, we want to do something from this component. So I don't want you to take care of all the migration stuff at the card level. That doesn't really make sense. So we can say migrate item, right? And so this follows the HTML convention pattern of trying to keep things kebab case, because the event items usually are dash rather than camel case, if I remember this correctly. So once we do that, then we can say we can run a migrate item function that we're going to go ahead and define up here. So let's go ahead and we're back in the options API. So if we do the migrate function, migrate item, and then we have our payload, we can just log the payload to see if this even works. And so we can see here, if I click here, click Zorro, migrate, you can see we get our column exactly as we expect, which is great. Because this is exactly what we're thinking, right? Which is like base column is keeping track of some things, right? The component is responsible for tracking where it's from. It's responsible for tracking where it wants to go. And then it's data inside of it, right? And so all we're doing is we're just sending that data back out to say, hey, you do this thing with this. And so for me, I'm a big fan of this pattern of bubbling up what the request is rather than having the parent pass down a function that then the child runs in order to do the thing. To me, it makes more sense because, again, if we're talking about unidirectional communication, the child wants the parent to do something. The child doesn't really want to change itself. It's saying, hey, I know what I want to do. You take care of it from there. Okay, so then the parent then says, okay, we have this migrate item thing. And so what we want to do is we want to take the card and we want to move it over. So actually, I realized a couple of things. We're missing some things in the payload, which is we need the actual the ID of the card. So I'm going to say for now just card ID, which is going to should be data ID. So if I save this and update this and echo it again, oh, something did not like that. Oh, because data should be props.data.id. That's why it broke. Okay, so if I go to Zorro, migrate, there we go. Card ID is 123. Oh, card ID is 123 in both times. So how do I change this? Oh, that's right. It's because, oh, wait. That makes sense. No. The card ID is the same because this is the card ID. Okay, ignore me. Okay. All right, now that we have this, now we can actually do what we need to do. So what we would want to do is we want to say, let me hide this. Okay. Inside of our migrate item, we're doing one thing. So step one, we were going to move, So move item to new list. And then step two is going to be delete item from old list. That's our basic programmatic approach at this point. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, okay, what is the list we want to go to? Well, that is the target column, right? So actually what I'm going to do here is I am going to go ahead and destructure this payload so that we have we can just refer to it easier. So you have card ID, target ID, column, target column, and original column. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, so we're going to say this dot, so where is it? We have our data here, board dot columns. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So this dot board dot columns, it looks like it's getting a little ahead of me too, actually. Find the column where the column dot column name correct is equal to target column. That's great. And then dot items dot push. This is correct. Then what are we pushing here? We are pushing the original column where it's that, finding that column, and then the items, find the original item with the item ID equals card ID. That was, good job, Copilot. I think that is actually what we wanted to do. So if this works the way I think it will, Zorro migrate. Good. Okay, this is good. Because you can see here that we're actually able to now to move the thing from it to another list. The problem is though, we are duplicating it. We haven't actually removed it yet. So then at this point, all we've done is move the item to the new list. And so what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and then delete the item from the new list. So this is where we could reuse that logic of find column dot column name is equal to original column. So that's the original column. And then from here, we're going to actually filter it. I think this is fine because if we filter it, I think this will modify the existing array where we say item, the item.id does not equal card ID. I think that'll do the trick. So we go to Zoro, migrate. Ooh, did not like it. I think it's because I couldn't just run a filter on it. So let me go ahead. Once again, I'm getting covered up. Filter is not a function. It's not a function. Oh, of course not. So column dot items dot filter. There we go. Zoro, migrate. Did not like it. Oh, that's why. This dot board. So I wonder how I could abstract this a little bit. Const. Original. Parent column is going to be equal to, we're going to find this item where it's equal to the original column. That is correct. Then I believe we can say parent column dot items is equal to parent column dot item filter like this. That should be better now. So if I go to Zoro, migrate, still did not like that. Why? Because I can't spell. Zoro. Yeah. What am I doing wrong? So here, reading the process of board. It does not like this dot. Oh, that's why. There you go. Columns find. This 0. Okay. The only problem is, this is what happens when you rapid type. Zoro. There we go. Now it's moving correctly. Bump. Switch. Great. Excellent. This is exciting. Because now we basically have the ability to then see that things are moving correctly. So now I can go ahead and say, this is a feature. User can move items between columns. But we're just going to go ahead and clean up the UI a little bit here because the base card doesn't need to show, it does not need to show the column you're trying to target. That was just an artifact from me just wanting to make sure that this was tracking correctly, right? But more importantly, you're also probably thinking like, why the heck are we even including the original column name? Like this is extra data that the user honestly would never move it to the same list. So how do we deal with that? Well, that's actually fairly simple because all we need to do is we need to just have a computed property where then we say the migrate list. So we can say, I'll say const filtered migrate list, and that'll be a computed property where it looks like this may have anticipated what I wanted. Props.migrate list, right? Filter it where the item does not equal, column name. Yep. Does not equal props.parent column. Yes, this is correct. I believe this is right. So if we take this and swap this out here, now we should only see Zoro and Nani. So now if we click on it and move, now you can see Luffy and only Luffy and Nani show up, which is great. So now if we want Luffy, that shows up. Okay, so now we just improved like sort of the DX or sort of the UX of that really. So feature filter out columns, that parent column from select dropdown. Okay, now I'm glad we could figure all that out because now we are at the point where it's time for us to figure out how the heck do we drag this from place to place. Because now we've created a programmatic way to just move to specific lists, which is fine. That's great. That's actually the base functionality we need to create before we can talk about other things. And so the next part of this, which I'm excited for, that we're going to do for the remainder of the stream, is looking to a new library that is called View Draggable. So let's take a look at what this is. So this is something that I came in my sort of search for this thing. And it's supposed to be a drag and drop component that's using sortable.js underneath the hood. And so I figured, well, this is what live streams are for, right? We're here to kind of see how things work. So to show you a demo of it, here we go. Let's blow this up a little bit. Theoretically, when we're going ahead and moving stuff, it should just allow us to move it left and right. So here's like a two-list one that allows me to drag it left and right. This is a lot of what Kanban boards really are, right? So how, like, I'd like to see the sort of the developer experience behind using a library like this. So that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so the first thing first, let me just close some of these tabs. Actually, I just realized we don't really need this stuff. Need that, need that. Actually, we don't need this anymore. We have a basic UI in place, which is great. And now let's figure out how to use this view draggable. That is the question. Oh, nope, didn't like that. Okay, so I don't want the demo anymore. I just want the docs. Where are the docs? All right, so view draggable here, Yep. Admin dashboard, sure. Okay, install. So I think for this project, I am using Yarn. Let's do Yarn add view draggable. Okay, great. Beware it is view draggable for 2 and not view draggable. Wait. Oh, for view 2, where's view 3? Oh, did I could have sworn it said it was compatible with view 3. Or am I, oh, wait. Am I on the wrong? Here we go. Here's the view 3 one. Here's the view 3 one. Great. Beware it is view draggable and not view draggable, which is, I don't understand. That did not help me. Huh. Yes, 2.2. Okay, hold on. Let me look at the package.json. View draggable 2.24.3. This was released in 20. No, I want, is there like a next commit? Let's see, releases. Yep, this was way back in 2020. But they're clearly working on the Vue 3 version. At least that's what it seems like to me. Look, Vue component, Vue.js 2 and 3, or directive, Vue 1. Okay, you know what? We're just going to keep going with it. If it really does break, then we'll deal accordingly. So for now, we've added it, Vue draggable. And then for the use component, it's saying we need to use a draggable component here where you have the V model, the group, the start, the end. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. With transition group, with footer slot, with Vuex. Oh dear. Okay. All right, let's just see if this even works. So what we're gonna do, one step at a time, right? I think this is sometimes the hardest thing about working in development sometimes, is that you kind of get it in your head that like you have this like idea of what you think it's gonna be, or like, and it can feel overwhelming sometimes. So that's like you're getting live reactions from me as I'm trying to figure out whether this is gonna work the way I think it will, and I'm like a little hesitant on like whether it will, but rather than hem and haw, let's just figure out if it's gonna work. So interesting. Look, so we have start, drag, true, false, element, and my array. Okay. So const my array, the array is an array with an ID and a name. So we can check this real quick by just creating a data thing that's called my array. And then it said it has an ID, right? Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it has a name. Let's just do Ben. And then ID of, and then this will be name Ben2. Okay, then we need to call comma, save it. Okay, I'm gonna refresh it. Oh, cannot read property of header. So if we take a look at this, element name, that's fine. Element in my array, draggable. My array, that's fine. Group people. What do you mean group people? I was hoping, I thought the docs would be accommodate for this, but it seems like this is not the case. Okay, so in lieu of trying to make something work, vmodel handle group name people clone. Yeah, I don't understand the API for this. I'm sure that if someone were to explain it to me, I probably would be able to understand this, but clearly in the limited time that I have, I'm having a hard time understanding this. So we're gonna hack this. We're just gonna hack it. Okay, so first thing first, let's see. So with tick status, I'm basically checking what has changed. I've dropped some stuff. I don't want any of this. So I'm wiping it out and reinstalling my dependencies. Great. Okay, so what we're gonna do though is we're actually gonna use what we actually talked about last week. We're gonna actually use Vue use to do this because unfortunately I don't see a really path forward with Draggable at the moment. So let's go ahead and look at Vue use because I have an idea of how I could it's not going to be perfect. Like there's going to be a lot of issues in terms of like support of touch devices, etc. But as far as like prototyping and just having fun and learning things, we're going to use this use draggable thing that I tried to use last time and I wasn't able to use. So we're going to add view. Let's see. I think it's just add view use, I want to say. And then actually, I do think that view use is going to be part of view 3's core. It might, in fact, it might already be part of it, so that I don't even have to do this. But for the sake of being very explicit, let's go ahead and do that. So now that we have that, let's say the components. So okay, so here's how the components work. Okay, I'm going to need this in a second because inside of here, if I'm taking a look at the different components, we want to use the use draggable. And so actually, before I even go on, for those who haven't used view use before, I did a whole video on it last week. And so it's actually up on YouTube already. So I'll make sure to include that in the show notes so that if you want to go ahead and get a sense of what we did with that, you can go ahead and do so accordingly. So let's see. We're going to import use draggable here. And then we're going to go ahead and view use components. Great. And then we're just going to use the component here, use draggable. Okay. And so this is great. I love this. So if I grab this and just drop this in, this to me is what I like for documentation purposes. One of the things I love is being able to kind of easily drop in examples into your code, because otherwise, like if it requires a lot of setup, there is this kind of question of like, is this really going to work? And then you wonder, like, is it something that you configured that something's wrong? But anyways, okay, what happened here? Something super broke. Node here. Okay, I don't even know what that is. All right, we're just going to start it over. Yarn dev. And then error transforming workspace ID failed to revolve import. Oh, does a file even exist? Oh, that's why. Yarn add view use components. That's what I needed to do because I installed core, and core is probably needed for both. But anyways, the component is what I needed to install. That's why it was unable to transform. Okay, so now that I have this, now that I refresh, everything's good. And then, oh, okay, so it's interesting. It's clearly updating the X and Y. It's not dragging though. And I think the reason is because, nope, I lost it. Why is it not moving? Let's see. Underneath the hood, there should be styles being updated. Touch axis none. Is it because there's no styles on this? Position fixed. And then now that position's fixed. Ah, yeah. Oh, it's over. Oh, wait. I think I got it. Then I can do style. I would have assumed that. I guess he doesn't want to assume that we're using position fix. Okay. Yeah, check it. Excellent. Okay, so we have the use draggable now that's working. And so the question is that when you drag it, you can you get a sense of the X and Y position, right? And the reason why I think this is interesting is, what if we actually then took this use draggable and wrapped it around the cards? This is where my theory lies. So inside of every, inside with every list item, I'm going to drop in the card here like this, save. Ooh, okay. We can see that it's clearly having some issues. It's fine. But what if I no longer made it about the fact that it's position fixed? This is good. Now, if I go over here and click and drag it across, now see if I can click this and drag across. Okay, great. So it's able to actually then calculate how far I've dragged it across. This is very interesting. Why? Because we should be able to then derive where the column is for every, the positioning of it. And so I only have 10 minutes left. All right, so how are we going to do this? We need to calculate the position. Okay, so let's keep it simple. All we need to care about is whether or not the card moves over enough to be within the coordinates of this, right? So basically, as you can see here, right, it's saying it's 247. This is the x coordinate. The y is kind of irrelevant at this point. We're not going to worry about ordering. But this does allow us to go from left to right. And then as long as we're basically in the x, we can assume that it's part of that it's basically in the correct column that you want it to be in. And so, okay, let's do this. So for every single column, what we need to do is we need to actually derive something. We need to derive so every time we've mounted it, we need to derive where it's coming from. So this is where I think we can get JavaScript get element position x. So this is done. Get bounding client rect. I wonder if we could do this properly, although this is a dynamic property that will always change though. This is gonna be a little bit tricky, but okay, we're gonna hack this. So for every single column, every time we add a new column, so every time we create column, we want to be able to add it, but then when we add it, we need to know certain dimensions about it, in fact. And these are not hard-coded things. These are things that are constantly being computed. So I just realized it probably would be nice for the columns to be their own components, but for the sake of trying to finish this prototype within the stream, I'm trying to think about how we would do this now. So, okay, for now, let us assume we can make the status, right? So when we create a column, I'm actually curious, what if we get the ref and then you get the element itself, right? Hello, how's it going? Hold on, maybe there's a view way. Get x position of element. Let's see, how do they say to do it? Let's see, how do they say? On click. Yeah. Okay, ref. There's a ref where you click and you get the position, and the position is the ref's bus stop. Okay, so they're using refs in that case. That's one of the things I thought of. I'm kind of wondering though. Oh, wait a second. Oh no, please. Yes? Excellent. Anthony, once again, phenomenal work here, because we can derive the element bounding here to bind it to it. I think this will want to say it would, because the use element bounding. So right now what we're trying to do is we have the ability to detect basically where we're going with this. And so actually when we click and drag, it's now making me wonder. I realize because we have the X and Y, but I need to actually feed this into a function. And so this is actually what I'm just realizing I need to actually be able to do. So if we're taking a look here at the use draggable, it gets an initial value, which is fine, but then the slot is exposed that shows that, oh, but because we've exposed X and Y, this does mean that we could actually probably track this in a way that allows me to actually do something with it. So in other words, so check it. So if I do position as a object that contains X and Y, this means that inside of our BaseCard component, if I expose this correctly, and we have our position, which is an object, this does mean that we could probably then use the onWatch event. Let me do watch view 3 real quick, just to make sure I got the right thing. Yep, okay, so watch effect. Yep, okay, actually I think I want watch effect in this particular thing, because I want it to watch basically immediately. I don't want it to just only watch and change. So watch effect, and then we're looking for props.position. And when props.position, we're basically going to log props.position as it changes. So if this works the way I think it should, we should be able to see inside the console. No, nothing is coming down. Props.position, is that what I said? Props position, yep. So that's that. Let me just make sure I actually get it. Actually, you know what? No, I don't even need to do that. I can just print out position here, and it is undefined right now, which is kind of interesting. Yep. And then even though the X and Y are occurring here, we have an initial value here that's bound. X and Y are exposed. It's being rendered here, but it's not allowing me to pass it. Oh, here you go. Wansalom here with a recommendation for a new no framework drag and drop. Excellent. I will, you know what? I'm going to copy that, drop that in the resources. So maybe that's actually, with the time we have left, maybe it will fall a little bit short. your own drag and drop. Cool. You know what though? Okay, no. This is part of my like goal with every stream is that like even if it's the hackiest thing ever, I'm going to make this work. So, okay, so I need to figure this out. So if X and Y are moved, again, I'm a little curious why I can't call something in here because the V slot exposes the slot. I'm passing it down. All right, let me just put X. Oh, X was fine. Oh, okay, so it could not derive that from the syntactic trigger. So that's the case, that's fine. Excellent. Okay, perfect. Okay, we're good. So now what I need to do is then I've derived this, so I can actually get rid of this. So here's my position. And what we can say is that if the position is, again, let's just make this work. Let's just make the prototype work. We know that in this particular layout, again, we're gonna do fixed layout. We're not worried about responsive. We basically need to move 204 pixels across. So what I'm gonna say is that if the position, so let's see, when we refresh the page, the position starts, actually, it doesn't even make sense for the initial value to be here because I'm not even initializing the value. Can I do that and refresh? 0, 0. Okay, so interesting. Okay, whatever. So if we click on it and say if X moves is more than 200, we want to migrate it. That's what I actually want to test. So if this even works. So what we're going to do, we're going to watch props.position. Okay, so a couple of things that's kind of interesting. So you know what we're going to start with? We're going to start with the, how do I know what the position is to start? Let's see, X00. If I click this, X41. Okay, let's just assume the initial value is 41. So then roughly that. So we refresh 4110, click, drag 45, 46, 48, 49. Okay, great. So if we just assume the base of X and then we push over 200. So if X changes that much, so how do we do this? We can then say the original position of X at the so props.position X. So, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to make this work. Const initial X is going to be a ref of 0. Okay. And then we're going to say that when the component is mounted, we're going to say, hey, we're going to take the initial X dot value and we're going to set it to the props.position.x. So that way we have a way to track it. And so to prove that this works, we'll just say original position is going to be initial X, save. So now if we refresh this, check it out. Okay, 41 stays put. Now we can actually run a calculation because we can say if props.position.x minus initial X dot value, right? And let's just assume it's greater than 250. We're just gonna, because we can always do all the calculations in the world to like mix this out, but like, let's just make sure this works. If it is greater than that, then we can say, oh, I'm only gonna be able to do one column. It's fine. We're gonna actually emit it. Again, we're just gonna do target column is we're gonna be very, very explicit. We're going to Zorro. And then else, I'm gonna actually just test this theory out. Else if props.position is going to be greater than 500, because I'm going to assume that's how much it takes to the second column, then we're going to go ahead and actually I think GitHub Copilot actually did predict it correctly. That. Okay. Here goes nothing. So if we refresh, click, drag all the way to 250. Props.position X minus initial dot value. It didn't do anything. Why did it not emit the event? Okay, you know what though? Again, let's just make this work. Hello. One more piece. Goodbye. Refresh console. Oh, something did happen. It did hello. And it didn't like the emits. Something broke. Dang it. Reference caught original column is not defined. Oh, of course, because original column is going to be the parent column. So this is the issue of the prediction I had with migrate card because, right, yeah, that's why. Because this here needs to be this. Props.parent column, props.parent column. save. Oh my God, I think it worked. It worked. Okay, I broke it. It's fine. But okay, so if it's over 250, yeah, okay, great. It works. Okay, you know what? I'm calling that a win. So okay, this is all broken. It only moves one column, but we got it to the point where it's actually dragging and dropping. So again, it's not great, but as you can see, if I drag it enough, we can certainly do the calculations for dynamic widths of columns, accounting for those things. But if you want to talk about hacking together a drag and drop, we did it. We did it in this session. So let me just go ahead and commit this code. And so there we go. Feature use view use to create. I'll call it a rigid drag and drop use case because it doesn't obviously do it for everything, but we could certainly extract a lot of concepts from this. And once we get the calculations for each thing, it really is just a matter of like, rather than just having the position change, we would want to actually also make sure we listen for like a release of the mouse before we just move it automatically. But again, for the sake of something working, it does work now. So let's go ahead. Let's switch over to wrap things up. So as you can see today, we did quite a bit. We got ahead and upgraded our sort of Trello MVP clone app with the Nuxt 3 beta to clean up some of the styles a little bit. But then importantly, we've gone ahead and implemented the UI to be a little bit more closer to what Trello is expecting. And then we actually have, even though we couldn't get the view draggable to work as expected out of the gate, we managed to actually implement a very, very simple version of the ability to listen to a drag and having events fire from that. And that, I think, is the basis for like, I mean, isn't that what we're learning about, right? As we work with primitives and come up with ways to hack around solutions that may not always work out of the box. Because let's face it, you'll get issues at work that you think is going to work one way, you think a library will solve your problem, and then for whatever reason, it doesn't work. So we try to come up with the sort of our own ways to get around those things. But for full disclosure, just remember that when it comes to drag and drop events, as far as full production implementation, there are a lot of things to consider as far as touch events and accessibility things. So just know that it's one of those things that you gotta be careful of. All of the resources that we talked about today will be mentioned inside of the description of the video below. So just if you click on the link there, you'll see everything that we've mentioned. But more importantly, if you have any additional questions or you could use clarification, be sure to leave a comment below in the video. So I do my best to respond to those, and it honestly helps to inspire future content as well if people are having issues with things. So be sure to add comments there. And then of course, if you want to go ahead and follow for the latest, be sure to click subscribe and like to always helps the channel as far as search algorithm and things. So if you found it helpful, that would be great. But otherwise, once again, thanks everyone for hanging out. If you want to join the live stream going forward or just want to see what's going on, you can check out the schedule at www.benkozen.io/schedule. So once again, that link will be below. So once again, thanks everyone. It's been a lot of fun, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.